Okay, guys, I'm back. It's now 1 o'clock in the morning, and we are doing section 7.8. I wanted to make sure I got in all the sections in chapter 7 so you would have it to do your homework, review for the test, and your test is it starts on Friday, it is due on Monday. You have enough time. I don't care how the heck you get it done, just get it done and give me a good grade. Anyway, last section 7.8 is on complex numbers. So basically, there's something, if you were taking the square root of 9, you would get 3. But if you take the square root of negative 9, you cannot do that. But you can separate the 9 and the negative 1, and you can get 3, and the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. So you get 3i. And that's how you would do this one. And you would get 3i. So the way it works is that I squared equals negative 1. I equals the square root of negative 1. I to the third is really I to the second times I, which is really negative I. And I to the fourth is I to the second times I to the second, which is equal to 1. So you have to memorize this. Except the funniest part is, because we're doing online, you get to just have it in front of you. You get to legally cheat. I know you like that one. Anyway, okay, so let's move on. Number 2. Okay, the square root of negative 7 is the square root of 7 times the square root of negative 1. And the square root of 7 you cannot take. And the square root of negative 1 is I. So it's the square root of 7i. So this one was a perfect square, no square root. This one, you cannot take the square root, so just leave it, bring it along. Now the square root of negative 12 is the square root of 12 times the square root of negative 1. And the square root of 12, what is the biggest perfect square that goes into it? That is 4. And what times 4 is 12? That is 3. So the square root of 4, which is 2, bring over the square root of 3, and the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. And remember, that I is outside. That is not inside the square root. Remember that. This is outside of the square root also. Okay, now we're going to add complex numbers. So we have a real part and an imaginary part. Remember, real, fake, real, fake. Okay, so we got 5 plus 8 is 13. And we have negative 6i plus positive 9i, which is 3i. So that's real plus imaginary. Okay. Number 5. We're going to go real. We'll combine the reals, combine the imaginary. So we have 8 minus 2 is 6. And 7i minus positive 4i. So that's really 7i minus 4i is positive 3i. Number 6. We have 3i times 9i. 3 times 9 is 27. I times I is I squared. And what does I squared equal? Negative 1. So it's really 27 times negative 1, which is negative 27. Okay, keep moving. The square root of 49. Moving it up a little bit, square root of 49 is negative 49 is the square root of 49 times the square root of negative 1. And then we have the square root of 16 times the square root of negative 1. So the square root of 49 is 7. And the square root of negative 1 is I times the square root of 16 is 4. Square root of negative 1 is I. So we have 28i squared. And that is 28 times negative 1, or negative 28. Okay, let's keep going. So we have negative, we're going to be doing some distributing. Negative 7i times 3 is negative 21i. And negative 7i times 4i is negative 28i squared. So I'm assuming you can actually say this, that I squared is negative 1 times negative 28 is positive 28. And I have negative 21i. So if you notice, we have a real and an imaginary. This is a real. That's a real imaginary. And this is just warm-up. Okay, now we are dividing. Now when you're dividing, just like radicals, you cannot have a radical on the bottom, cannot have an I on the bottom. So we're going to multiply by the, move this up, the conjugate. Okay, so multiply the exact same bottom, but change the sign. And put parentheses around it. And now we're going to distribute. 26 times 5 is 130. 26 times negative I is negative 26i. Okay, 5 times 5 is 25. Then we have negative 5i, positive 5i, and negative I squared. Okay, these cancel. Negative I, so I squared is negative 1, and we have a negative in front, which two negatives make a positive. So we have 26. So we have 130 minus 26i over 26. And then I want it in a plus bi form. That's 130 over 26. Ooh, keep moving. Minus 26 over 26 is 1. So we have I left. And you could reduce if you want, or you could leave it. Fine with me. Give you a second to look at it. And I will point the screen to the whole thing when we're done. So if you need to take a picture of it and make a copy, no problem. Okay, number 10. Can't have I on the bottom, so we're going to take the conjugate. Conjugate is 2 plus 3i. Write it twice. And we are going to multiply. I'm going to assume something I haven't assumed before, that you can do the bottom a little faster. So 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12i. And the bottom we have 4 plus 6i. Inner minus 6i. Last minus 9i squared. Cancel. I squared is negative 1. So this is really plus 9 plus 4 is 13. And separate it, 8 over 13 plus 12 over 13i. Real, imaginary. If you leave it like this part instead of this, you're going to lose a couple points. Anyway, what if you had I to the 50? Let's say you did I to the 17th. Okay, how would you get I to the 17th? You would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it's really equal to I, but you're going to do that for 53? Nah. You're going to divide 4 into that little exponent. It goes 4 times. The leftover is the same thing as I to the first, which is just, you can call it I. Now, how do you do I to the 53rd? You go 4 into 53. It goes once, goes 3 times. Oh, we got 1 left over again. It's still equal to I. If you put the square root of negative 1, you're still correct, but I prefer I. But I squared is negative 1, I to the third is negative I, and I to the fourth is 1. So you need to know this. So let me give you a full screen of this so you can take a picture if you need to. See, I'll pull it back up just a little bit. There you go. Okay. Good luck on your test. Bye.